Hi, this is Mad Cat, the egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today we are looking at what feminism has done for men, an egalitarian counterpoint between a feminist, an MRA, and an egalitarian. As always, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize ahead of time. Wow, I'm getting much better with that. Although, I don't think I've ever mispronounced anyone's name yet. Maybe I should change my tagline. I don't know. So this is going to be a series of videos. This is actually a little bit of a complicated video. I can't fit it all into one video. My videos are way too long as it is. So a little bit of background on this before I get started. I was on Tumblr debating a feminist. Someone posted a couple of links and I kind of taunted the feminist saying, please respond to this. And her basic response was like, well, you know, I only care about the issues I'm concerned with, and I really am not one to comment on these issues because I don't know anything about them, so I'm not going to. We got into debating a little bit with each other. We actually found some common ground, and in respect to her, because she wrote me privately and asked, you know, please just keep this private between you and me, and you know, she's respected me, so I'm going to respect her and not mention her name. But one of the things I said to her is like, well, tell me one thing that feminism has done for men. If it's really about equality, because she said, like, you know, it's about equality of all genders to allow women to have the same rights as men. And it's like, okay, there's so much logical failure in that statement. So I asked her, and she gave me this article called 23 Ways Feminism Has Made the World a Better Place for Men. Now, I've wanted to do a video on this for quite some time. Sorry, I'm getting messages as we speak. Hold on a sec. Lately, I've become a little bit more popular with Skype. So anyways, so I wanted to do a video on this for quite some time. And, you know, I've been busy with several other things. And I wanted to try to do some research into this, not speak from my hip, because there's a lot of things that are discussed here that I know are wrong, but I really can't pinpoint exactly what it is without doing some additional research. And I've done a little bit of research. Part of my research actually found an article by another person, an MRA, or at least a person from A Voice for Men. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a point and counterpoint between these two articles, and then kind of give my viewpoint in respect. Now, even though it's 23 viewpoints, I'm only going to do 5 points today, and then each video after that, I'm just going to do an additional 5 points. Because there's a lot to discuss. I'm going to read both of these articles together. I am going to start with the feminist article first because that is what came first. The second article is a response to the first, and then I'm going to give my viewpoint. So let me just go ahead and get some introductions out of the way. Of course, you know who I am, or if you don't, well, I'm the guy who's speaking. So the first article, 23 Ways Feminism Has Made a World a Better Place for Men. And this was by Elizabeth Plank on Mike.com, written on May 3rd, 2014. The second article was by Hannah Wallen, Dear Feminists, No Fault, Not All Feminists Are Like That, Goes Both Ways, which was a 2-part article. It was written May 9th on 2014 on thevoiceformen.com. Now, I actually know Hannah Wallen. We've talked a few times. I highly respect her. Um, just know that just because I do value her as a person and I think she's great, doesn't mean that I'm not going to be critical of her, and I would hope that she would expect me to do so. So what I'm going to do first is just going to read a little introduction to both articles and then go into the points. So we'll start with the feminist article first. I'm not going to do voices for this because, well, that would just be too taxing on my voice. But so the feminist article. When you think about feminism, the first thing that comes to mind probably isn't men. No, it's not. But it's strange that most of us perceive gender equality as only uplifting ladies. That would be feminism. When the women liberation actually had a lasting impact on all of us. Ooh, do tell us, please. I'm so interested. According to Fox News, the empowerment of women is a threat to national security, causes boys utter failure in school, and has turned men into weeps. I'm not sure what weeps means. Weeps and wusses, as well as slackers. Female breadwinners are also apparently a problem. Really? You're basing this on Fox News? Fox News is like the biggest jokes of news media outlet, and you're using Fox News to justify your own opinion? That only tells me that your own opinion is weak to begin with if you're basing it off of Fox News. Well, the only way of seeing it, while that's one way of seeing it, another is to look at the host of ways that feminism has actually made the world a nicer place to live in for everyone. Since Zerlina Maxwell so brilliantly explained how the movement has helped women, let's look at the 23 ways it's impacted men. So let's go to the Dear Feminist article, or Dear Feminism. So just reading the beginning excerpt. No fault, or not all feminists are like that. I kind of like that acronym. No fault, not fault, or not fault. Not all feminists are like that. It goes so well together. It's usually the argument used to say that not all feminists are evil, man-hating narcissists and liars, which seems to sometimes be true. But there's always another side to saying not all feminists are like that. Feminists are in the habit of claiming feminism is responsible for things that they were never responsible for, things they claimed. Recently, Policy Mick published an article apparently intending to help renew feminists' sinking reputation. The article, an opinion piece by Elizabeth Plank, listed off the 23 ways feminism has made a world a better place for men. It would seem like a pretty good reason to be thankful if feminism actually improved the world for men. Unfortunately for men and the author of the piece, her assessment is far from accurate. Let's take a look at those claims. So the battle lines have been drawn. So again, we're only looking at 5 points today. I will link both of these articles that you can go ahead and take a look for yourself. But let's give the feminists the first go, since this is what started it. Okay, so point 1, it gave our economy a huge, long-lasting boost. Okay. Women's integration in the workforce after World War II translated into a massive macroeconomic gains. Given that ladies make up approximately half of the workforce, their integration had huge positive ripple effects in all industries. And we shouldn't stop there. Incorporating even more women in the workforce can help keep our economy vibrant. Sounds like someone who's never studied economy before. According to The Economist, The empowerment of career women is one of the most defining changes in the industrialized world. Goldman Sachs calculates that, leaving all other things equal, increasing women's participation in the labor market to male levels will boost GDP by 21% in Italy, 19% in Spain, 16% in Japan, and 9% in America. France, Germany, and America 9% and 8% in Britain. Wow, a whole whopping 9% improvement in our GDP. Yes, I know what our GDP is, but okay, so there's a little bit to discuss here, but we'll go ahead and take a look at what Hannah has to say. No, it didn't. Miss Plank writes as if feminism is responsible for women's place in the workforce after World War II, a view that ignores work done by women prior to the war and the conditions which led to women temporarily filling some work areas that were previously dominated by men. Not only were women a part of the workforce prior to World War II, they were involved in the industry that transformed the American labor force from being mainly family labor and apprenticeship to wage labor. The textile industry. They were also involved in areas we now think is traditionally male. An account of Great Britain Parliamentary Papers, 1842, volume 16, shows that at least one politician was appalled to see Welsh girls and women facing the same working conditions as men in English coal mines. Further down the page, a woman describes the work and goes on to state that it was even harder to do while pregnant. Then she quotes in a family way, and don't understand what that means. So what was Rosie the Riveter all about? I don't know where Rosie the Riveter came into all of this. I've never heard of it before, but let's continue on. Prior to World War II, women did hard jobs. Who did hard jobs did them out of a need for income, just like men. These women couldn't afford to be choosy because they were poor. Upper-class women didn't seek out jobs in coal mines and textile mills. They took positions serving other households or otherwise subject themselves to harsh labor. They stayed at home because they could, the rich women, or engage in activism, wrote or sought education, earned credentials, and took higher-end, high-paying jobs. Rosie the Riveter was about women stepping up to fill the workforce roles vacated by men who were drafted or volunteered to fight in the war. The effort was not so much a feminist initiative to change the women's roles as it was a social response to the sudden changing labor needs, and it occurred because of something completely unrelated to feminism. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, which drastically altered the dynamic of the labor market. The law established a 44-hour work week, later shortened to 40, we know today, and outlawed oppressive child labor practices. The need for large numbers of women to enter the manufacturing labor force was part created by the shorter work week, which increased the number of people it would take to produce the same result, and in part by the removal of children from the workforce, which left women as the default replacement for men. Outlawing child labor, though it was needed and obviously a right step in the U.S. government to take, was not a response to feminism. Supporting the movement to end child exploitation in the workforce was partly a result of the shrunken Depression-era job market and pressure to reserve jobs for households supporting adults. Unless feminism caused the stock market crash in 1929, anything's possible, and started the war which pulled men from factories in the early 40s, you can't really claim claim credit for boosting the economy, rosy or not. First off, I want to say this is well written compared to the other piece. The other piece just seems like to put in as little as possible to explain something. And yeah, this is longer, but it's a much more detailed approach. And I'm kind of wishing that the other article did it as well. But you can see why I'm only covering 5 points today. So what's my take on all of this? Well, first off, I agree with Hannah that feminism had nothing to do with women's being in the workforce after World War II. The only way you can say that they had any part of it was in second wave feminism with the Equal Pay Act. And even then, that was in 1963, I believe. But, women were working earlier than World War II, as Hannah has pointed out. And, the need for women to work in during World War II was because there was a shortage of men. And we have seen this other times in history. I do a lot of study on the Black Plague, Black Death, during the 1300s. And actually the same thing happened there. But that's not because Europe went to war, it's because a vast number of people died. 2.5 million people died in less than 10 years. And prior to that, about a couple decades before that, was a great famine that killed a large number of people. So women were needed to fill positions that were predominantly men. And for a time between the end of the Black Plague and the beginning of the Renaissance, women actually enjoyed a more equal share of society than any other time in history, even compared to today. Because there wasn't any sort of feminists out there trying to make them seem more of a protected class. Women did work, they got paid, they went home and took care of their family, just as men did. And even in higher social standings, women started to have more voice, being able to dress how they want. Again, there was no feminism in place to really say, oh, well, we're being oppressed and we need more rights. And that's why I say that society back then, however horrible it was in other ways, was more egalitarian than we see today, because they didn't have special interest groups trying to say that women were victims. Women did the work because it was necessary, because a large number of people died. And it took, nearly 500 years to rebuild the economy from everything that was lost. But going back to World War II, this wasn't a feminist movement. There weren't feminists saying, hey, we deserve work. It was, oh, men are suddenly gone. I'm not earning enough to feed my children. I need to start working. Oh, they're now starting to hire because there are no men to fill the jobs. And then afterwards, it was like, well, you know what? Women can do work as equal as men. Let's go ahead and hire both of them. Now, it took a while for it to standardize to where there was equal pay and equal rights between men and women. It wasn't a perfect system, and it was kind of like a last-ditch effort at that point of like, let's make up our losses somehow. But there were still women before that working in industry. So I'm sorry, but feminism doesn't get a win for this. Feminism had nothing to do with it. And even if you want to say that women in the workplace help the economy, well, it didn't seem to do a very good job, since nowadays both men and women have to work in their family just to make ends meet. And the idea that one parent can work while the other one stays home is now more of a myth than a fact. Yes, I am aware that it does happen today, that there are some situations where that occurs. But that's usually higher class. Lower class, both parents have to work. They have to work 80 plus hours a week, barely see their children, just so they can give them food and give them all of the clothes and school supplies they need every year. So if the feminist movement has improved the economy, I'm still waiting to see it. Because the way I'm seeing it, not a whole lot has improved, especially for the lower class. Okay, so let's go to point number 2. It's helped men achieve better relationships and more satisfying sex. Really? Feminism did that? Okay, let's go ahead and read on. It is a well-known fact that women highly respect a guy who's willing to do his share around the house. Okay. Judging by the number of gawk-worthy porn for women slideshows, which I've looked at, and it's just a bunch of buff guys in the kitchen doing various things. So one guy sitting in a sink with water being poured on him. What household chore is that? And that's like, ooh, I love a guy who's in the kitchen. Yeah, in the kitchen making your sink unsanitary. Ladies are turned on when their partners reveal a little more of their domestic side. Yeah, lying is horrible. But what about men? Where do they stand to gain? Research shows that men who share domestic tasks with their wives report being happier and having more sex. So it looks like liberating women from the shackles of the double day burden, which was a link to a book that had one review saying, hey, how about you edit this before you publish again, aren't so bad for men after all. Men who date feminists also report better relationship satisfaction and better sex, which means that contrary to anti-feminist wisdom, feminist women aren't boner shrinkers after all. Yeah, I did a little bit of research on this, but let's check out what Hannah has to say. The first paragraph attributes improved relationship satisfaction to sharing household work. A tradition normally exists when both partners work outside the home. As discussed in the response to the first claim, that's not a result of feminism, but change in overall structure of the employment labor dynamic during the Depression era. Further, it's not necessarily true, according to a Norwegian study, Equality in the Home, by Thomas, TV blowout deal. Sorry. By Thomas Hansen and Britt Slagsvold. The evaluated data from the two surveys, which combined a total of 18,934 respondents, and found that divorce rate among couples who shared household equality was around 50% higher than those where the woman did most of the housework. Though the researchers stressed that they found little evidence of cause and effect, they noted that lacking clear roles can add stress to the marriage. While this doesn't mean people should fear a cooperative effort in the home, it does reduce the credibility of the article's claim. Basically, the claim that men who do equal housework have happier marriages. The article also misreports the results of this study. They do link a study in there. I recommend checking out both, which found that human tendency to be better at relationships with people of like mind as oneself, politically and socially, also extends to feminism. Big surprise, but far from a shining moment of feminist benevolence towards overall male population. So, my response to this point, which I actually wrote a little bit on this. So I already mentioned that the porn link was a joke. I mean, some men might be doing a little bit of household cleaning. But I don't really think it's so much that they're doing cleaning. Maybe some women are into that, but it's really good-looking men in a kitchen. That's basically it. So building a successful home, and this is all me. So building a successful home where both people share the responsibility makes for a happier marriage, or does feminism come in? Are we saying that couples in the Old West were happier because men worked in the fields all day long and women worked in the house? Oh, well, and here's the thing. It's like when you have roommates and both people share the workhouse load, they tend to get along a lot better. Whereas if you have one person who doesn't do anything at all and you have to sit there and complain all the time, then you have a very bad dynamic with each other. Should we think feminism when two guys living together get along because they're both doing household chores that need to be done to keep a clean place? Do we thank feminism for that? No. Feminism has nothing to do with that, much like feminism has nothing to do with this issue. Oh, and people happy in their marriage have more sex. Or is it this that people in a relationship where men do all of the housework equals more sex? And what are you actually trying to say here? So yeah, people who are in a relationship together that are happy with each other are more likely to have sex than people who are not. I'm sure there's some study out there that can actually tell me if that's true or not. But that's what it seems to be saying in this point by this feminist, that it's like, oh, well, men who are with feminists tend to be happier because they're doing equal housework and they're having better sex. Well, that's, of course, assuming that the feminist is not doing anything to sabotage the relationship. Just because she's a feminist has nothing to do with the fact that they have a happy marriage. You know, that's like saying Democrats have more sex than Republicans. I mean, your political party has nothing to do with it. What Hannah was saying was, well, you know, if you get people of similar political stances, they're no more likely to get along, thus become more happier, thus have more sex. I mean, if you get two people that hate each other all the time that are for some reason married, they're going to be unhappy, they're going to be less likely to be happy in their relationship, and thus, no sex. Or if they have sex, it's going to be angry sex. If you've never had angry sex, I don't recommend it because then you have to be angry at someone, but if you ever do have it, it does have its benefits. But also this idea that, you know, this study seemed biased to try to find evidence of feminism being positive to a relationship. If I can get the title of it real quick. The article, which was written in 2007, was The Interpersonal Power of Feminism. Is feminism good for romantic relationships? Wow, that doesn't seem biased in the slightest. This must be a really good article. I can't get the full article right now. I'm sure if I search for it, I could find it. And as Hannah stated, it was a misrepresentation of data. But this paper that was written doesn't really indicate that this was all self-reporting first and foremost. And the thing with self-reporting is people will often lie to make themselves seem better. That doesn't mean that truth doesn't come out in these sort of things, but I would like to know their method in which they judge things. But also that men were better in feminist relationships. How did you account for that? Did you compare it to men who are not in feminist relationships? What was your criteria for that? And this introduction doesn't really go into that too much. It mostly just says, well, this is what feminism is, and this is the politics they have to deal with, and all the bullshit they have to deal with, and all the hate they have to deal with. And, oh, feminists make better sex. It's like, you're not even really that good at making an argument. You're just saying, hey, this is something I believe. Here's some studies that somehow say what I'm saying, but don't look at them. Just accept it as fact. Okay, so number 3, it successfully overturned laws that discriminated against men. As gender discrimination became more of a popular topic of discussion in the 1970s, people began noticing traces of unequal treatment in other aspects of American law. In 1976, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to treat women and men differently under the law. The case of Craig versus Boren was filed by a plaintiff in Oklahoma, over its gender-specific drinking age policy, which prohibited men from drinking before the age of 21, but allowing women to drink when as young as 18. This implied that men are inherently more reckless and women are more responsible. After the law was struck down, the drinking age became 21 for all. You notice how they said filed by a plaintiff. They didn't give the name of the person. Now, if it was filed by a woman, they would have been like, oh, it was filed by this woman, and this woman's like this great person. It was actually filed by a man. According to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the ruling determined much more than just Oklahoma's drinking age. It determined that the familiar stereotype, the active boy, aggressive and assertive, and the passive girl, docile and submissive, was not fit to be written into law. So the next time you're drinking, raise a glass in honor to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, so what's wrong with that? Hannah had a short thing about this. One would suspect something of substance for a claim like this, but instead the writer credits feminism with the result of Craig versus Boren in 1976, a case that was ruled on by male judges who cited equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and stated that the state's statistical claim on drunk driving didn't justify violating it. Feminism was not involved in the decision. So I did a little bit more search into this. And there's a lot to take away from this. But it's like, what does feminism have to do with this court case? What does Ruth Bader Ginsburg have to do with it? I mean, first off, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the Supreme Court in 1993. This court case was from 1976. Are you telling me that she went back in time and told all the court justices, hey, this is unfair to men, you need to change this? Because that's about the only way Ruth Bader Ginsburg had any part in this. But we should drink to Ruth Bader Ginsburg for commenting on this court case about inequality. Yes, let's thank Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and let's not thank any of the court justices at the time for this decision, which was a correct decision to make. You know what? I'll go ahead and do it. Let me see if I still have that page up. Okay, so in 1976, who do we have to thank? Well, there was Warren Burger, William J. Brennan, we had Harry Bluckman, John Paul Stevens, Lewis Franklin Powell Jr., Byron White, Potter Stewart, William Rehnquist, and Thurgood Marshall. These men made the decision based on a court case that was brought by a male. Where was feminism? I don't see feminists anywhere in this. In fact, I would think that if feminists was a part of this, they would be on the side of saying, hey, us women are much more mature than men. You know, men can't handle it. In fact, men should have their drinking age pushed back to the age of 25. So feminism, you don't get credit for this. You had nothing to do with it, and your only instance of having any part of this is to say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg thinks it's a good decision. No, you don't get it because she thinks it was a good decision, unless she was actually there. Even if she was actually there, you still have several other people. With 9 people, you have to get 5 people to agree to it. Is it? Yeah, it's 9 people on the. You have to get majority control, and one feminist doesn't mean it's a feminist achievement. But she wasn't even there. So no, you don't get credit for this one. This is not feminism at work. This is American law at work, noticing a problem and telling Oklahoma, change your fucking laws. It's discrimination. Either everyone gets to do it at 18 or everyone has to wait until 21. It was the right decision to make. All right. Did I have anything else to say on this? No, that's pretty much it. All right. It made life easier for single men. It shows a picture of a full house family. Over the course of lengthy legal careers, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her husband joined forces only once to advocate for single men. Notice how it doesn't name the single man in this. Even though this is about men, we don't bother naming any men in all of this, only women. The case of Moritz versus Commissioner challenged the fact that not all men could request dependent care deductions. Although tax deductions were given to women, widowers, and divorced men, single males slipped through the cracks. Ending this discrimination policy was one of Ginsburg's many victories, using the 14th Amendment to end the enshrinement of gender discrimination into law. Hannah, please tell us something. The first example is yet another misrepresentation of the nature and reasoning behind a court case undertaken by the American Civil Liberties Union, an organization not defined as feminist, but an overall civil rights organization. The ACLU takes on a wide variety of cases, covering a range of issues not limited to feminist causes. Moritz versus Commissioner was a tax case in which an adult caregiver of an aging parent had been denied on the basis of his marital status a tax deduction for covering the expenses of a home health care aide to stay with her while he worked. As with Craig versus Boren, it was decided based on the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Feminism is not the determining factor in whether or not an individual is covered by the clause. If ideology was the determining factor in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's choice to advocate for remedying an injustice against men, and she was an ACLU associate, would have ignored the case had sexism not been a particular injustice. That's prejudice, not a typical type of support. I'm sorry if I butchered that up. The author use of the Image TV show Full House displays what the claim is misleading, as the deduction in question was specific for an adult dependent, not anything to do with children. The person in this case, back in the 60s, was taking care of his mother, but he was a single man. She was sick, and he had to take care of her and sued the government, sued the IRS, well, not sued, but brought them to court, on the basis that he should have been given tax deductions because a part of his income was supplemented in taking care of her, which is another right decision to make. So, I mean, it's really cut and dry right there, but feminism, once again, had nothing to do with this. Okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a feminist, but not everything that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is in the name of feminism, or even if you could say that, there were the rest of the Supreme Court were men. Let me double check that. Nope, Sandra Day O'Connor was there before Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My bad. There were 2 women on there. I don't know what Sandra Day O'Connor's politics are, but okay, I will give you that there were 2 women out of 9. But even if Sandra Day O'Connor said, this is wrong, you still have to convince 7 other men. And most likely did it because of the 14th Amendment, like they did in the previous case that was mentioned. I didn't exactly see were there feminists involved in this? Because there's no mention of that. There was no mention of, feminists picketed signs when he was first denied, saying that this was unequal. No, you didn't. I tried doing research on that to try to see if there was anything. And if there was, please let me know. Please let me know if there were ever women picketing signs and saying, this is wrong, this is discrimination against men, this is wrong. Let me know if that's happened, because I'll be interested to look at it. And I'll even apologize for my comment. But I will go on record and say that didn't happen. Feminists didn't care about this shit, because it already favored women. Women, widows, they got deductions. Single men didn't. So, no, you don't get a win on this one. Just because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a feminist, or at least that's what all of this is suggesting, and she made a decision, it could have been a feminist decision, but her vote alone does not make a law. 9 votes make a law. And not all 9 votes are feminist. And in fact, I would argue that feminism has a minority on that board. So just because Ruth Bader Ginsburg does something or says something doesn't make it a win for feminism. So our last point, and it's a good one. Well, not a good one. It just talks about sex. And, I like sex, so. It expanded the possibility of more sexy time opportunities. So feminism allowed sex to occur more often. Okay. Last time I checked, men enjoy sex. Yeah, I enjoy sex. How about the rest of you guys? Do you enjoy sex? What's that? You do? Oh, okay. Oh, women, you do too? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ignore you in that. And many of them enjoy having sex with women, except those that like guys. The sexual revolution affected women as well as men. It gave women the ability to pursue sexual activities more freely. Okay. Which naturally altered sexual dynamics in this country. If more dudes knew that women's ability to have sex with them was dependent on accessibility of birth control, maybe everyone would stop calling it a woman's issue. Wow, okay. Anil Dash, an entrepreneur and writer for New York City, wholeheartedly agrees. As a function of this level, the widespread, inexpensive availability is a huge benefit to straight and straightish guys. Straightish, is that a technical term? Straightish guys. For obvious reasons. Sex is fun. Really? We needed an entrepreneur and writer in the New York City to tell us that sex is fun? Oh my God, all this time I thought it was a chore. You mean sex is fun? I can do it for fun? Wow, let's go have sex, he told Policy Mike. But that's not the only benefit. Beyond the selfish benefits of men, wait, what? Sex is a selfish benefit for men? There's a basic human compassion of wanting people I love to have agency over their essential aspect of their health and their lives. You mean women. Because you already identified that men have selfish needs when it comes to sex, but women have more agency because of birth control. Okay. This is just wrong in so many ways. And birth control is not just about sex, it's also about reproductive control. Most men enjoy determining the spacing of each child. Bullshit. Bullshit. I'm sorry, but I'm going to interrupt this moment to say that men do not have reproductive rights, and female birth control doesn't give men any sort of choice in when children are born. That is complete bullshit right there. Oh, men enjoy determining the spacing of each child. Sure, if they have a choice in the matter, but men don't have a choice when it comes to reproduction. You stupid moron. I'm sorry, I know you're a woman, but you're a fucking moron if you think that that has any realm of truth in it. You are a fucking idiot. Anyways, Dash certainly does. I've been able to make smarter, more thoughtful decisions about how to time my career, my being a parent, and my other obligations because of the flexibility and freedom afforded to me by having easy access to birth control, he says. It let me hold off on becoming a dad until I had gotten closer to being a man worthy of being one. It's called fucking condoms, you idiot. Hannah, you're on stage. The claim cites a benefit to women as it is a benefit for men. Birth control for women is protection for women, providing women with massive control over their fertility. While this is a good thing, it's a benefit to women that is controlled by women, not a tool for men to use to protect themselves from the unwanted condition of parenthood. It also credits feminism with something that feminism didn't achieve. While feminism had an impact on the modern forms of birth control by women, the existence of birth control preceded feminism activism by thousands of years. Its acceptability preceded feminism as well. It wasn't until after the American Civil War that when the Cornstalk Law of 1873 was passed, and there was a controversy over birth control in the U.S. Interesting, the law was passed for the same reasons that were purportedly behind Margaret Sanger's foundation work, which launched what is now known as Planned Parenthood, to keep the poor from reproducing too much faster than rich people. Yes, birth control and Planned Parenthood were designed as population control and movements. That raises another point. The claim also ignores sexual behaviors of humans. Birth control was not created because people couldn't have sex without it, but because people were having sex and wanted to prevent pregnancy. It didn't increase the opportunities for copulation, but merely added to the variety of ways women use to avoid pregnancy. On the other hand, feminists have unsuccessfully opposed an increase in male birth control options, and in the past even opposed condoms because they would take control of reproduction away from women by giving men the ability to prevent their own contribution to pregnancy. While feminists are all for women having control of the reproduction health and the level of responsibilities they choose to take, they're not so keen on affording men the same right. Now, this issue gets to me, as you can see. And, I'm sorry I erupted. I'm not sorry for yelling at this author. She had that coming for oh, God, it makes me angry. But, men have no reproductive right. And to suggest that female birth control gives men agency is complete fucking bullshit. A man can use a condom to have sex with a girl, a responsible thing to do, and then take the condom and throw it in the trash. A woman can come up, take that condom, put the cum in her pussy, and get pregnant, and the man is financially responsible for it. Hell, there was a court case where a woman gave a man a blowjob and then used the semen to impregnate herself, and the attorney argued and then, wanted him to pay for child support. And he, of course, sued her for this because this was stealing. But it was determined by the court that it wasn't stealing because he gave his sperm to her as a gift. Even though the intention was not to impregnate her, he shouldn't have given it to her. And it is just such ludicrous reasoning that, birth control is something that's in favor of men because women can have sex more often? No. Men and women were having sex long before modern day birth control came onto the scene, and birth control has been around a lot longer than the feminist movement. And this is just like, you're clutching at straws in all honesty. And as we go through this video series, you're going to see that this is just clutching at straws. You're trying to find something to say, oh, well, this benefits men, so it means feminism did it. When in truth, feminism had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I mean, so far, the only thing that you got close on was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a feminist, made a decision on something. But that doesn't mean it's a win for feminism. It doesn't mean that it was feminism right there in American law doing something groundbreaking. Because a feminist wasn't the only one making the decision. You're just clutching at straws. And I'm glad that I have this point and counterpoint between this feminist and this MRA. And yeah, I don't like this feminist article one bit, and I do really like this MRA response. I will say, out of all feminist articles that I've seen on Tumblr and on the internet, this at least links to its points. I will give you that one point, Elizabeth. You did at least do that. You're batshit insane if you think any of this is true, but at least you did that. Hannah, I thank you for this. This article is actually well done. It's a very good response piece. You do link your articles to show where you're getting your information, and you're not trying to dish out bullshit. You're actually trying to give us facts. The other article, the 23 Ways, is an opinion piece. That's all it is by someone who hasn't done their research, found a couple of facts online, probably went on Reddit, and it's like, hey, what are some things that feminism has done for men? Oh, we've done this, 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 this. Oh, okay, I'll just take those and not bother doing any more research on them. Anyways, that does it for me today. I'm going to probably do this in a couple more, in a week or so. I might try to do this once a week with the other videos I'm doing. I don't know. It depends on how things are going with Thanksgiving later this week and Christmas coming up. But thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. This is Mad Cat signing off.